The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
What do you make of RFK and vaccines and what he's saying about it and the position he's been given in this incoming administration?
Well, he wrote a book saying that Tony Fauci and I kill millions of children and make billions of dollars with vaccines. And, you know, people can judge for themselves whether that's correct or not.
All right, what's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Super random. Started off the episode with that interview from Bill Gates in the Wall Street Journal. He actually did that interview last week, and so there's a bunch of clips that are circulating. You know, I wanted to play that one because it kind of dovetails off of the discussions we've had in regards to vaccines and then also in regards to RFK Jr. and his potentially being confirmed for the head of the Health and Human Services, HHS. And so, you know, the only reason I played that is because that's interesting. So here's Bill Gates talking to the Wall Street Journal saying RFK Jr. accused Tony Fauci and I of basically profiting on all this vaccine. Now, if that was not true, or if there was not, let's say, truth to that, wouldn't Bill Gates sue the absolute hell out of RFK Jr. for slander or libel or both? And remember, slander is defamatory statements that are said, and then libel is defamatory statements that are written. So obviously he definitely wrote it because he wrote it in that book. And then I think I've heard him say it as well. But my point is, someone obviously with the resources that Bill Gates has, in addition to Tony Fauci, I mean, Fauci's got a bunch of money. Don't you think those guys would have absolutely sued the complete shit out of RFK Jr. and sued him into oblivion for those harsh of statements? Think about that. That is an interesting thing to think about. And I thought it was pretty fascinating that Gates himself admitted that. And then I wish the Wall Street Reporter would have said, well, why didn't you sue him? If that's not true, why did you not sue the hell out of him? So anyway, there's that. All right, today I'm going to, I was going to do the Candace Owens / other people, Michael Jackson episode, but man, that thing's going to be probably an hour and 15 to an hour and 30 long. And I started working on it yesterday and it's just going to take a little bit longer. So hold off on that. Instead, we're going to talk about some fun things today. And then we're also going to use it I'm going to use it as a day to, judge the takes and basically bring some clips into the mix on people that I've been pretty skeptical about, or people that I've been critical about. I shouldn't say skeptical, I should say critical, but I want to, give them their due because, again, if I am all about judging the take, I really need to do that. So let's start with Shawn Ryan. I've been a little skeptical and critical of him and the various things that he's put out as of late. But listen to this interview, or listen to this segment of an interview that he did with this lady, Linda Lee. And I think it's a very interesting conversation, and it's one that I've thought of a lot, but I don't know if I've ever really brought it up per se on this.
A lot of people say it was Obama's third term. There's rumors of, and these are friends of mine that are moderate Democrats say that they thought it was Elizabeth Warren running it. They thought it was Bernie Sanders running it. But I think the general consensus, if you asked, the majority of the population, they think it was Obama's third term.
It was for sure Obama's third term. I don't think that's even a question. I don't think anyone It definitely was. And that's why you saw Obama fighting for his dear life. Why was he fighting so hard in the fall? Because he was fighting for his fourth term. He was fighting for his own legacy. The relationship between Obama and Biden is most reminiscent of that between LBJ and JFK. JFK had little respect for Lyndon B. Johnson, but he picked him anyway because he wanted to win the South. He wanted to win Texas. but he had very little respect for LBJ's intellect. JFK was surrounded by his Harvard brain trust, and he had immense disdain for LBJ's Texas Hill Country vibe. And that was the same attitude that Obama had towards Biden. Obama thought that Biden would eventually fuck everything up. And that's eventually actually what happened.
All right, really quick, let me jump in here. I mean, again, now that the Biden presidency is done, we can actually call a spade on that. And that absolutely is true. There is no way that Biden was really president those 4 years. And this even all goes back to the discussion I had the other day in terms of COVID and what happened in 2020. And again, I'll take you all the way back to the episode I did on Bernie Sanders and the Bernie's Blackout documentary and all of that. And again, if you are not, if you're a new listener and you didn't, I guess, hear all that, let me catch you up. Basically, if you go back to the 2020 election, Bernie Sanders was absolutely crushing everybody in the Democratic field. And I think that the Democratic powers that be, to make a long story very short, knew that Bernie Sanders was not going to be able to beat Trump. And that precipitated the entire launch, in my opinion, of the COVID initiative. And I'll refer to it as that. It was a COVID initiative. The entire COVID initiative launched in order to enable mail-in balloting. And the mail-in balloting is why I think Biden was able to technically win. And it goes on what I talked about actually in yesterday's episode about it being plausible that that whole situation was launched for that reason. And again, I really do think that's plausible. I absolutely do. And I absolutely think the Chinese, and especially President Xi, got to a point where he's like, dude, we cannot work with Trump. He's going to absolutely want to clean our clocks and eat our cake. And so, you know what? We're gonna back a different horse. And I really do think all of that stuff came together. It culminated in them supporting Biden and Biden being brought forward. It also culminated in, if you remember in 2020, Biden basically lived in his basement during the election process. He was never out anywhere. And you also had the cover of COVID for that. So dude, it's crazy stuff. It's seriously crazy stuff. But now we're at a point where we can legitimately, without fear, have some conversations about it. So anyway, I thought what Linda Lee and Shawn Ryan talked about there, again, you don't have to agree with it and you don't have to believe it, but, just listen to it and see if it makes any possible sense to you. Again, and if it doesn't, totally cool. Okay, let's listen to what she finishes out in terms of Obama's relationship with Kamala.
So, but also he didn't have much faith in Kamala Harris. Before she ascended to the top role, he was vetting people like Mark Kelly and Andy Bashir. Most party chieftains didn't have Kamala Harris as their number one choice. But in the party of DEI, you can't skip a black woman. The optics would have been terrible.
So who is running it? Who are the names?
Steve Ricchetti, his senior advisor, Anita Dunn, Mike Donnellan, Ron Klain, Jeff Zients, Bob Bauer, his personal lawyer, who's actually his personal lawyer, who actually released a book basically grifting off his relationship with the Bidens. I'm going to get in so much trouble for saying all this. Please give me credit but these are the people who ran our country for the last 4 years.
All right, you know what's funny? I was about to cut out that last part because honestly, I didn't know any of those people, any of those names she mentioned. I don't know any of them, so I'll have to look into them. But like I said, I think that stuff is interesting. I think it's worth listening to. I think it's worth thinking about and adding to your mental Rolodex of information. I will potentially look up those people to see who they were in terms of the Obama administration. But anyway, like I said, I think all that stuff at this point, it's worth talking about a little bit, if nothing else, to get us ready for what we've got coming ahead. All right, let's jump into, I had some people yesterday say, Ray D, give us a little scoop and what you think about Justin Baldoni versus Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. I can't even believe I'm dipping my toes into this stuff. But here's where I net out, and I'm going to play a great clip for you guys. I am totally team Justin Baldoni. I can't stand Ryan Reynolds. I've never really liked that guy. I find him smug. He's like that smug white dude that I went to college with that I never really liked, and I always felt like was looking down on me because my skin was mocha. I don't know. I'm not really talking about anyone in particular, but anyway, I've never liked Ryan Reynolds. Blake Lively, I mean, she's kind of a nothing burger to me, but this entire situation with Justin Baldoni, I love that the tables have gotten turned on them, and I absolutely love that. I hope they get screwed big time, and I hope that Justin Baldoni wins his $400 million lawsuit against them and completely cleans their clock financially, because what ended up happening, and what's funny is Candace Owens really exposed a lot of this, but what basically ended up happening was Blake Lively, after being a mom for a long time and out of the public spotlight, decides to get back into the public spotlight by taking this lead in this movie that Justin Baldoni was the writer, director, and producer of. And long story short, she kind of catches feelings for him during the movie. And then Ryan Reynolds shows up on set one day and basically kind of feels that energy between them and pretty much goes on like a psychopathic, jealous husband warpath. I mean, that's like the summary of it. But listen to this. This girl does an amazing summary. Literally, by listening to this, you're completely caught up.
Never mistake kindness for weakness. I'd bet my life on it. This is what happened. Blake Lively gets cast and it ends with us, with this lesser known actor, director, producer, Justin Baldoni. And since marrying Ryan Reynolds, she's been more in the background. She sees the film as an opportunity to get back in the spotlight. Justin Baldoni is collaborative and kind and encourages her to share her ideas and thoughts. Like he genuinely values her input on the film and like looks at her as an equal. Blake misinterprets his kindness and catches feelings for him. And during this, rumors about Ryan Reynolds being controlling come into play. The rumors are like he prefers Blake being more low-key, staying home raising the kids, working on her little lifestyle brand, and staying out of the limelight. Supposedly, Ryan Reynolds got uncomfortable with Blake working so closely with Justin. You know, there are theories that like maybe he found like late night texts between them and thought it was suspicious. And so maybe he confronted Blake. She panics and downplays the situation, like in order to protect herself. And she's like, oh, Justin made me uncomfortable. So he's feeling protective and jealous. She doesn't want to look like she's cheating. So she's like, oh, he has me. She's trying to cover her. And so that's why Ryan Reynolds starts showing up to set and taking over meetings and rewriting scenes and like overshadowing Justin Baldoni's role. That's why he takes over the whole production. Like in order to keep peace in her home, she might have felt a lot of pressure from her husband and took this whole like, he made me uncomfortable thing to the next level. And that's why the claims of harassment happened, because she was trying to keep peace in her home. So naturally, if your spouse comes to you and says something like that's happening, you take action. You do something about it. That's why he took legal action, so he could shut Justin Baldoni down professionally. And I'm sure they thought that Justin Baldoni was just gonna take it. And now Blake's in this really awkward position. I promise you this marriage will not last another year. Blake is scrambling, and she is self-sabotaging her marriage, but he's not gonna let her ruin his career. I was wrong before. I did talk trash on this man, and I take it back. But those are my thoughts, and I swear, with all the information we have right now, I swear that is the story.
All right, there you have it. That is the story. And I'll tell you why it matters. It matters because people like Ryan Reynolds he's a bully, man. He's a bully. And he literally thought he could completely railroad this Justin Baldoni guy. And, you know, for example, he didn't let Justin Baldoni and his entire family, they showed up for the premiere and they wouldn't let them attend the premiere. They made them like go in the basement of some auditorium. So like imagine putting literally your blood, sweat, and tears into the project that you developed, that you created, and you get to the night that is the culmination of everything, and it's your night and it's your premiere, and you literally did not even get to attend it. So they thought they could get away with it, and then I guess Justin Baldoni started pushing back. He brought on an attorney, and these guys are cleaning their clocks now. The law firm that represents Justin Baldoni literally has created a website where they've published all these insane text messages, audio clips, emails between him and Blake Lively. And anyway, long story short, it looks like it is all the rage of a jealous husband being Ryan Reynolds. So let's see what happens. They're suing for like $14 million or $400 million. Chances are, obviously, they'll probably settle for something. But, I hope justice is served because I don't like bullies. I'm not a fan of bullies. So kind of like Bill Maher. I think Bill Maher is a bully. That dude, he just likes to bully people on his show. I hope I get a chance to go on the show sometime. I want to lay a smackdown on the Bill Maher. There's a couple people I want to smack down. Bill Maher's one of them. Jimmy Kimmel's another. I think Jimmy Kimmel's such trash. I really do. I think that guy's terrible. He is such a leftist propagandist. It's crazy. He's just terrible. Stephen Colbert. I don't like Stephen Colbert. I think he's pretty bad. All right. Anyway, I said today was Redemption Day. So I have been busting President Trump's cojones on this Gaza stuff now a little bit. And honestly, there's been several things he's done that I don't like, but I got to give it up to 45-47. Wait, is that right? Yeah, he's 45 and 47 as far as presidents. But I got to give it up to him for this. So this is what he passed or said he was going to do. And listen to the new press secretary. Caroline Levitt is her name.
So these are the tax priorities of the Trump administration that the president has laid out for members in that meeting today. No tax on tips, which is obviously a very public campaign promise that the president made. No tax on seniors' Social Security. No tax on overtime pay. Renewing President Trump's 2017 middle-class tax cuts. Again, these are the president's priorities. Adjusting the SALT cap, eliminate all the special tax breaks for billionaire sports team owners, close the carried interest tax deduction loophole, tax cuts for Made in America products. This will be the largest tax cut in history for middle-class working Americans. The president is committed to working with Congress to get this done.
All right. So again, you got to give him credit for those, especially I like the first couple in terms of not taxing tips and then not taxing senior Social Security. You do have to admire that. So hopefully these will get through Congress and these will happen because I do think these are positive. So see, there you have it. We're judging the take. We are judging the take. All right. Next one. Oh, you know what? I have to play this clip. This is so funny. And this is like PhD level satire / sarcasm / parody / trolling. But listen to what this guy does. And basically, he is equating what Trump is proposing with taking over Gaza and Palestine. And he's basically substituting China for the United States, and he's substituting the Pacific Palisades for Palestine. Listen to this. This is truly brilliant.
Breaking news this morning, China is going to take over the Palisades and own it. They're going to occupy this land and build unlimited amounts of housing and provide jobs for people in the area. They said that Mexico and Canada are going to take in the people from the Palisades while they rebuild that land. That area is absolutely devastated, and the Palestinian people don't actually want to return to their land, but the reason they're not leaving is because there's no other option. Many countries have reached out to China willing to take in the Palestinian people, so they'll be fine. But what's important important is to get the people out of the Palisades as soon as possible because it's too dangerous there. There's too many fires, too much looting, and China needs to rebuild this alone. Something has to be different in the Palisades or else it's just going to be the same way it's been for the last 100 years. China has said this land is beautiful when it's cleaned up, of course, and it can be built with beachfront properties. I think we should be grateful to China because the people of the Palisades now can never go home, and they don't want to go home, so thank you, China. Now, my hope for this is it will be part of a larger peace process that will end a tariff war between China and the U.S. and the animosity between these two countries.
That is seriously one of the most clever things that I've heard in a long time. So obviously, that's funny, man. That is funny. People are creative. People are talented. The way he related Palisades to Palestine, that's actually funny that there's kind of a play on words there. And then obviously China doing what Trump is saying the United States is going to do with Gaza. Now, by the way, I do want to say one thing because I have tried to look at all sides of everything and, with everything. And one of the guys that I really like, Ian Carroll, I think I've played him on the podcast before, but Ian did a video the other day and I won't play it for you, but maybe I will next week. But one thing he talked about, which again, I thought was interesting, and I think it's something worth, I guess, thinking through. But at the end of, let's say Trump says, okay, we're going to move all the Palestinian people out of that area. We're going to totally rebuild that area, which that in and of itself, those two things are great. Now, where it gets bad is whether all those people can return to their homeland into, brand new apartment buildings, Mar-a-Lago, Gaza edition, or whether all those people, all the Palestinians can never return to their homeland. That's really where the controversy is. But play this out with me. Let's say, and again, he hasn't said this, so let's not give him too much credit. But let's say at the end of that process, they move everybody out. They completely rebuild Gaza. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the 2.3 million or 1.8 million, that's another interesting thing, those numbers, and I'll explain that in a second. But let's say, for argument's sake, those 2 million people are all allowed to return back to the rebuilt Gaza 2.0, and that is owned by the United States. I will say the one thing he has done, which is pretty incredible, is if the United States owns that land, then Israel no longer is going to be able to bomb that land because they're basically bombing the United States. Israel no longer is going to be able to treat that area as an open-air prison, which a lot of people consider Gaza right now, and they've considered Gaza practically that since 2005, an open-air prison where Israel is controlling the food, water, medicine, electricity, everything. And so, I mean, that would be evil, genius, diabolical of Trump if he has been playing four-dimensional chess with this, and that's what ends up happening. Now, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I really don't. I mean, that's a thread that, is it plausible? I mean, it could be plausible, but I don't think it's going to happen. And the reason I don't think it's going to happen is I just think he would piss off so many people that butter his matzah or butter his bread. See what I did there? I made a joke, butter his matzah. And those people are more the people like this Miriam Adelson, who contributed $100 million to his campaign. Obviously his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has tremendous ties to Israel and the Netanyahu family. You've got, AIPAC, the big, powerful Jewish lobby organization. I don't think he's going to try and 4D chess all these entities. Maybe he would try to 4D chess Benjamin Netanyahu, because I do think, as I've said before, I do think he does not like Bibi anymore, but I don't think he would go over the top like that on all those other people. So anyway, all right, there's that. All right, last thing for today, I want to read you a fun / funny little dialogue I had with ChatGPT. And again, it goes back to the good old vaccines. And by the way, you can try these yourself. You can put in the same exact prompts that I did and see what it gives you. So the first prompt I asked, I said, how long does it take a vaccine to come to market from conception? And ChatGPT responded, the time it takes for a vaccine to go from conception to market can vary significantly, but on average, it takes 10 to 15 years. The process involves many stages. All right, so then my next prompt was, great, but with the COVID-19 that was expedited, what about clinical trials? And so here's ChatGPT's response. Even with the expedited timeline for COVID-19 vaccines, clinical trials were still conducted, but in a highly accelerated fashion. So while the typical 6 to 8 years for clinical trials was compressed into less than 1 year, no steps were skipped, just done more efficiently with more resources and under unprecedented global collaboration. Now, before I read you the next prompt, this is where you have to add your own level of critical thinking and interpretation into this. So for me, my level of critical thinking and interpretation, knowing that, again, remember, it's not like ChatGPT has its own separate brain outside the internet. ChatGPT is basically scraping, accumulating, and applying algorithmic logic to the same data that you and I can find by Googling something, but instead it takes hundreds, thousands, millions of data points and using, like I said, its own algorithmic logic, it gives you an answer based off of, taking in those data points. But it's no different than, or I should say, it's not accessing any information that you and I already can't access versus the internet. It's about the layer and level of interpretation that comes after that. So my point is, when it says typically it takes 6 to 8 years for clinical trials, but the COVID-19 was done in less than a year and no steps were skipped. Now, to me, I'm like, okay, of course it's going to say that because there's not going to be any data points on the internet, especially with how managed that was by Big Pharma, where they're going to admit to skipping steps, admit that, hey, it's true. It normally takes 8 years for us to get a real handle via clinical trials. But don't worry, everybody, we did it all in less than a year to get your vaccines. I don't believe that. I think the clinical trials for the COVID-19 vaccines, we're living it right now. You're going through it right now. And probably over the next, 3 to 4 more years, 5 more years, people are going to continue to come forward with issues because, again, it's almost like we're living we're living the clinical trials right now. Okay, so the next question I asked, this was my favorite. I said, great, wow, that's amazing that all of that can be done and condensed into less than a year without seemingly a lapse in quality. Why don't they do that with every vaccine then? So they get to market so much quicker. So that was my entire prompt. Again, remember with ChatGPT, I talk to it as if I'm talking to my super intelligent friend. So I typed in all of that. It's almost simulating like I'm having a conversation with it. And this is the best. Listen to this answer. So the answer that comes back, this is ChatGPT. Good question. If they could always move that fast, they probably would. Here's why most vaccines don't follow the COVID-19 timeline. In short, the COVID-19 vaccine timeline was a unique one-time acceleration because of the global crisis. Under normal circumstances, most vaccines follow the standard 10 to 15 year process to ensure safety, long-term efficacy, and regulatory compliance. Anyway, I thought that was interesting, and hopefully that also gives you a little more insight into, kind of how I use ChatGPT and how I communicate with it. But I honestly feel like I got the answers I was sort of looking for or curious to see what it would come back with. And again, like I said, man, the gloves are off. I am officially going to talk about this more and more, and I'm doing it all with the only intention being to help you basically fill in your knowledge base and hopefully guard against, anything bad happening to you or your family or your loved ones. That's it. All right, everybody, 30 minutes. Call a spade a spade. We got the Super Bowl this weekend. I'm going to go 27-24. Unfortunately, I think the Chiefs are going to win, but I want the Philadelphia Eagles to win. I'm rooting for the Eagles. I like the Dirty Birds. I like the fact that they're just funny, man. Those fans are nuts, and they deserve it. So anyway, go Eagles, but I think it's going to be 27-24 Chiefs. All right, everybody, call spade a spade. Have a great weekend.
That was a great way to end it.
This episode was brought to you by the new book, Deep Shallow Dive Into You, available now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hardcover and paperback. Don't forget to sign up for our new mailing list on our website at deepshallowdive.com.